I'm very grateful and very honored and happy to be with all of you this evening. Thank you for coming. As His Grace Mukunda Madhava Prabhu has told us that this event is traditionally held on Republic Day. And in a place like India, one of the reasons that Republic Day is specially remembered and celebrated is the challenges, the sacrifices, even the sufferings that people had to endure for India's independence. Perhaps more than anywhere else in the world, the place that Srila Prabhupada really was challenged and had to make tremendous sacrifices was to build this home for Sri Sri Radha Ras Bihari in Juhu Beach. In those days, it was kind of a swamp that was so far from the city that devotees couldn't understand why there. Because in New York at the time, the temple was in the Lower East Side, right in the middle of Manhattan. And the second temple in San Francisco was right in the middle of Haight-Ashbury, San Francisco. And in London, it was just a few blocks from the British Museum in downtown London. So temples were usually right in very, very prominent places. And if there was going to be something, a distance from the temple, it was usually that there was a temple in the middle of the city and then a satellite project that was in the countryside. But here, Srila Prabhupada wanted to build the temple for Bombay in a place that seemed so far away. And most of his followers couldn't understand. But I believe Prabhupada said someday this will be the middle of Bombay, I'm sorry. But the types of faith and struggle that Prabhupada endured over many years. At the time, he was in his mid-70s. He really didn't have money. He only had a few followers from the West who really didn't know that much about dealing with situations in India. And there were insurmountable odds trying to cheat him, exploit him, and stop the progress. But Srila Prabhupada promised Radha Ras Bihari that their temple would be here. And he put them in a little thatched hut in this swampy land with mosquitoes and rats and snakes and many very antagonistic neighbors. And when everything seemed hopeless, Srila Prabhupada was always fully encouraged with total faith. I made this promise to Krishna, and it will be fulfilled. It was impossible. by all material calculation. But anytime anyone tried to tell Prabhupada something was impossible, he would say that impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. Hare Krishna. Because he wasn't seeing it from the perspective of material ability. By the grace of Krishna, everything is possible. So the building of this temple, the development of the congregation, the seva to Radha Bihari, it happened in January also, the installation, Makara Sankranti time. So it's like Republic Day for Radha Bihari. And it's a very special day for us to remember Srila Prabhupada's sacrifice of faith and compassion and all those who were at his sides helping. And the person who was at his side more than anyone else throughout those years, from the beginning till the glorious conclusion, is His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj, who is with us this evening. And he is now in the process of writing a book about that era of Srila Prabhupada's devotional service and the pastimes of Sri Sri Radha Ras Bihari. He not only witnessed every event over the years that took place, but he was very much a part of it. So of all people living in the world today, there is no one more suitable and more empowered to share this story with the world, which is truly an important story. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the literary incarnation of Krishna. But up until the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, most of the stories focus on the devotees and culminate in their relationship with Krishna. Ambarish Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Parikshit Maharaj, Ranti Dev, the Prachetas, the Brijbasis. Mahajano yena gatasa panta. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu cited this verse from the scripture, that if we truly want to understand what is the goal and essence of all the scriptures of the world, it will not really be understood through scrutinized studying alone. Neither can it be understood and realized by our sacrifices, our tapasya, our charities. But the true path is Mahajano Jena Gata Sapanta, to follow in the footsteps of great souls. Through their prayers, through their teachings, and how they apply them to their life, especially through challenges, through both the sunny and stormy weather of life. That is where we actually understand what is the truth. So this book that His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj is writing is going to speak about our beloved Paramhamsa Acharya Srila Prabhupada, his personal, intimate, loving relationship with Radha Ras Bihari, and how in service to them, through all these different challenges, he was courageous, he was fearless, he was going against governments. It wasn't because of his physical strength or mental, intellectual abilities. It was because he had completely surrendered to the grace of Krishna. And everything comes through that. So it is a very important story for the world for all time. My humble request to all of you is let us express our enthusiasm for Giriraj Maharaj to complete this book by loudly chanting Hare Krishna. That's not going to work. At least 10 million times louder from your hearts, please. So we have expressed our message, Maharaj. Today we are fasting for Varaha's appearance day. And tomorrow is Varaha Dwadasi, and the next day Nityananda Trayodasi. Two very important festivals. And in the next few minutes, I'll try to speak something about both of these holy days. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we find Vidura. He's on the banks of the Ganga, near Haridwar, speaking to Maitreya Rishi. Vidura is such a special devotee to inspire us and to study his character. He was the most qualified person to be the king of Hastinapur, and that means the prominent emperor of the world. But because of a technicality in the way he was born, he was disqualified. And we know from the Mahabharata how many heartbreaking things he had to witness in his life. Dhritarashtra, his brother, who he dearly loved, due to the association of Duryodhana, fell victim to envy, arrogance, and terrible violent deeds against Yudhisthira and his brothers, the Pandavas. It was rightfully their kingdom, but it was exploited from them. They were cheated. There was attempts to assassinate them. They were banished, exiled to the forest for many years. And Vidura was always trying to help the Pandavas and always trying to help Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. He was everyone's well-wisher. He was the only true friend of his brother Dhritarashtra. He would give him always the best advice. But due to attachment to his wicked son, Dhritarashtra couldn't hear it. And ultimately, when things were getting so bad, so out of control, Vidura spoke very strong to Dhritarashtra that your son is envy and offense personified. If you follow what he is demanding, it's going to be the destruction of the whole dynasty. It's not just about you. He was speaking with love, with absolutely no selfish interest. While he was living in Hastinapur, he was one of Krishna's favorites. Krishna would love to come to his house and speak with him and dine with him. Krishna would put his feet on Vidura's lap. That's how close they were. He was a Paramhamsa. But on that day, Duryodhana was so angry. He spoke such harsh, violent words publicly in front of everyone. Duryodhana was extremely intelligent, but he used that intelligence for the most ungodly, wicked purposes. The insults that he spoke were like sharp arrows piercing the heart of Vidura. And he tolerated it. And ultimately Duryodhana ordered his own uncle that this is my kingdom, you get out immediately. The only thing I will allow you to take with you is your breath. He was immediately being banished. And all he was doing was trying to help his brother and do good for the kingdom. He was doing Krishna's will. He was totally misunderstood. And Dhritarashtra did not say a word to protect him. He was totally betrayed. He had to leave his family, he had to leave his home. He was absolutely humiliated publicly. And it hurt. But in that pain, Vidura he processed it as a Vaishnav processes things. Tatenu kampam susamikshamano. That actually this is Krishna's blessing upon me. Now I don't have to deal with any of this anymore. I'm not allowed to. Now I could go on pilgrimage to the holy places. And that's what he did. Alone, he just wandered throughout the length and breadth of India, going to holy places, meeting holy people, and offering his prayers and his devotion to Krishna. Although he was such an exalted, intimate friend of Krishna, because of his humble heart, he could see the blessing even in that situation. When we have arrogance, we can't detect blessings when they come in forms that are not easy to recognize. It takes a humble heart. Otherwise, we just retaliate. Why is this happening to me? And try to prove ourselves. Vidura, he was so exalted. But when he found another devotee, Maitreya Rishi, who had had association with Krishna, he very humbly inquired from him. This is the nature of a Vaishnav. A Vaishnav loves to hear Hari Katha from other Vaishnavas. Sometimes when we become experienced at speaking, we really like to speak. And if somebody else tries to say something, we speak. Can't hear, we just speak. We become addicted to hearing ourselves. And if we're speaking Krishna's message, that's good if we hear ourselves. But if we're actually hearing Krishna's message, then we'll be really, really happy to hear it from somebody else. And that was Vidura. There are many, many chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam that Sukadev Goswami chose to speak to Parikshit in his last 7 days, which are describing Vidura's asking questions to Maitreya Rishi to hear more and more the nectar of Krishna Katha. And it's not that he's sitting there saying, I already know all these things, but you can say it anyway. That's not the way Vaishnavas are. He was really inquiring, genuinely, from the heart. Oh yeah, he actually did know everything. But the more you know everything, the more you understand how that everything is infinitely beyond any of us. One who knows Krishna understands that Krishna's opulences, Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's beauty, Krishna's mercy is unlimited. That's actually understanding Krishna. Krishna's so great. Krishna's so inconceivable. So beyond everything and everyone. That as we understand him, we naturally become humbled by that. And we realize how much I don't know. And even the same pastime, there's infinite grace and infinite lessons in every little thing Krishna ever did. So if we just hear the same little story, if we're really tuned in, it never becomes old or tired or, I heard that again. How many times are you going to replay that? Rather, there's newer and newer excitement because you go deeper into the grace and the beauty and the sweetness of love, of Krishna's love. This Hare Krishna Mahamantra is Krishna. If we actually have the humility and the sincerity to chant in a service attitude, these same 3 names, Hare, Krishna, and Rama, become sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. Rupa Goswami tells, I do not know how much nectar the 2 syllables Krishna have produced. When I chant the name of Krishna, I desire many, many tongues. And when that sound vibration enters my ears, I desire millions and millions of ears. And when it comes into my heart, it totally conquers my consciousness. Same 2 syllables, Krishna. What to speak of his leelas and his teachings? They are all of that absolute nature. They are all attractive. They are infinitely filled with ananda, or spiritual bliss. And the more we're eager to hear, the more we actually can enter into the deep spiritual mysteries of Krishna's presence in these forms. So Vidura is so eager to ask questions, simple questions. What happened with Swayambhuva Manu after he was born to Lord Brahma? Simple question. But he knew he would get some nice answers because Swayambhuva Manu was a great devotee of Krishna. He's one of the Mahajans. Maitreya Rishi tells the story of Varahadev. It begins where the earth planet was submerged in the bottom of the Garbhodak ocean. And Swayambhuva Manu took note of this, and he and sages and rishis approached Lord Brahma, who's their guru and their father. What are we going to do? And Lord Brahma, what is his power compared to ours? On behalf of Krishna, he is a secondary creator of the whole universe. What have we created in comparison? And how long could we keep it once we create it? At the most 100 years. And after 90, we can't really do much of anything about it. Brahma lives 311 trillion years, and he never gets sick. Very powerful personality. And it's described that Krishna manifested himself in the Vedas. The Vedas are, Srila Prabhupada explains, the breath of Krishna. Krishna's manifesting full knowledge of himself and access to himself through his breath, which came as the Vedas. And Brahma inhaled that and became fully enlightened. But even though he was fully enlightened, when the earth is in the bottom of an ocean, what are you going to do? So he realized, this is beyond me. And he began to meditate on Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Please, what are we to do? And as he was taking shelter of Krishna, you see, a great person is a person who knows how to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not a person who just, I am the doer. Even when Brahma starts thinking he's the doer, he gets in complexities and difficulties. We see that in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Real greatness is when we understand Prakriti Kriyamana Niguna Karamani Sarvasha. Krishna is a supreme doer. And we take shelter. So he took shelter. And as he was taking shelter, he breathed. And a little boar, who was the size of the tip of a thumb, came out of his nose as he breathed. And that breath manifested Krishna himself as Varahadev, who is declared in Srimad Bhagavatam as the personified Vedas. And even Brahma was trying to figure out, what is this? This little boar comes out of his nose and goes up into the sky, and the sages and the rishis, headed by Marichi, they're all looking and they're all saying, what is that? And Brahma's thinking, what is this? And then Varahadev grew and grew and grew until he was like a mountain and bigger than a mountain. And then they all started discussing, who is this? What is this? How is this? Then Varahadev roared like a mountain. But for us, if we think of a mountain roaring, it would be a very scary kind of thing. But when Varahadev roared, it was so sweet, it was so beautiful, it totally charmed everyone's hearts. And immediately they all understood, this is our beloved Lord Vishnu who has come to answer our prayers. And Lord Vishnu smiled. And he went into the ocean and lifted the earth with his tusks. Srila Prabhupada explains, lifting the earth with tusks, this must be some sort of mythology to give some lesson to the world. But can we actually literally believe this? Srila Prabhupada explains, those who actually have a spiritual connection, who understand the inconceivable powers, potencies, and glories of the absolute truth, it's so easy to believe. What is it Krishna cannot do? Srila Prabhupada tells that story about that little cobbler who asked Narada Muni, when will I see Vishnu? And Narada Muni came back from Vaikuntha and said, you will see him in this very birth. And after you die, you will go back to Godhead. And the cobbler said, oh, he's an uneducated little cobbler. He said, I don't deserve that. My Lord is so merciful. What was he doing when you saw him? And Vishnu told Narada Muni what to say when this question was asked. He was putting an elephant through the eye of a needle. And the cobbler said, oh, how wonderful is my Lord. And Narada Muni said, you believe that? That someone could put elephants through needle eyes? And he said, of course, we're sitting under this banyan tree. And look at this little seed. My beloved Lord, my Krishna, he put this in an entire tree like this inside this little seed. And we see these miracles happening everywhere. Just look at your own body and look at the people next to you. What a miracle. How did it come about? A father comes together with a mother, and they don't know what's happening actually. Some little seed gets transferred and emulsified, and then little eyes start growing, and ears and hearts and lungs and kidneys and pancreas, and then a human body that could talk and can walk and create civilizations and write literatures and sing and dance and become self-realized, realize the eternal nature of the soul. Krishna's miracles are everywhere. Inconceivable, unbelievable. How is the sun, millions of times larger than the earth, just floating in the sky? It never falls down. It rises, it sets in the air. Everything's inconceivable. Every atomic particle is inconceivable. Scientists, just by learning how to manipulate atomic particles, could create nuclear bombs, such energy. Who created those atoms? So if Krishna wants to be a bore and lift up the earth, Krishna, you are so wonderful. It's not, oh, how could he do that? We can't do it, but Krishna can do anything and everything. He's a Bigya, he's Swarat. He's all-knowing and he's fully independent to do everything and anything. But it is all for one purpose, to facilitate love. The only purpose of existence is to love God and feel God's love. There's no other purpose anywhere. In the spiritual world, it is that loving reciprocation that is forever being shared. ever increasing in its fulfillment, in its ecstasies. And this material world, its only true purpose is to somehow or other bring people back to the understanding that that's their only true need, is to reconnect with Krishna's love and to love Krishna. And every other alternative we try to find will eventually frustrate us. The whole cosmic creation is created with that purpose. Birth, old age, disease, and death. If it wasn't for that stuff, we would probably remain in illusion forever. But there's enough sufferings here that we start thinking, what really is the purpose of life? Atato Brahma Jigyasa. And we take it serious. When dangers come, when things are going nice, the tendency is we do our meditation, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. But when you're in an airplane and there's an emergency landing and they're saying we're going to probably crash and everything's going like this and babies are screaming, then from your heart, like Draupadi, you chant the holy names of Krishna. And we're really making spiritual connection and tasting the sweetness of the name when we can chant with that intensity and sincerity, even when everything's going so nice. So Krishna, a devotee, when we hear from the authorized scriptures and from the enlightened, truly compassionate acharyas, we believe in what they say. We don't have to get checks and balances of the verification of modern science, technology, or mundane history books to believe. The Shastras are the history books, and the acharyas who speak them of the revelation of what is beyond the limits of material intelligence, mind, and senses. And we require faith. But it is the most scientific, reasonable faith there is. To have faith in the inconceivable Achintya Shakti potencies of the absolute truth of Krishna. And it's wonderful. And then there's the story of how Hiranyaksha, who was so powerful, and his purpose was to use his intelligence and his physical strength and all of the facilities that he had to exploit material nature, the environment, and other people for his own selfish interests. And Srila Prabhupada describes in this connection that this is the difference between material and spiritual. Spiritual consciousness is to see everything as Krishna's energy. Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. And the only real success of my life is that it pleases Krishna. And when we forget that and lose that higher taste of pleasing Krishna, then we fall into this ahankar, this false ego, that it's all about me and mine. And because that me and mine, I and mine mentality can never really be satisfied under the illusion that it can be through material things, we need more and more and more. And in this way, because we're polluted, through our exploitative tendency, we pollute other people, we pollute the world. And Hiranyaksha, he was so strong, he polluted everything so terribly that Varahadev had to come to restore it. And he liberated Hiranyaksha. And he restored the earth. Why? Lord Vishnu's happy in Vaikuntha. None of this stuff affects him. But he's the Supreme Person. Srila Prabhupada wrote about his guru. Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity thou hast removed. Krishna's within everyone's heart. Ishvara sarvabhutaram hridesha janatishthati. And he feels pain when he sees people suffering in forgetfulness of their spiritual nature. And he feels very pleased when we reciprocate to taste his love and share ours. That is bhakti. The Srimad Bhagavatam says, whatever our varna or ashram, whatever position, status, or anything we're in within this world, our only success and purpose is to please Lord Hari. And Srila Prabhupada in this connection explains Krishna is pleased by our sincerity. If we do something that appears very devotional, but we have a very selfish motive, it doesn't really please Krishna. It may get the applaud and glorification of so many people around us, but our progress is made according to what Krishna sees within our heart. He sees our intention. And Srila Prabhupada, in this respect, in the third canto, he defines sincerity as as acting for the pleasure of God without ulterior selfish motives, with the genuine desire to please Krishna. That is sincerity. Srila Prabhupada would sometimes plead with us. Just take this Krishna consciousness sincerely, and your life will be perfect. In Sri Caitanya Charitamrita, he writes in one purport that pure devotional service is very rare because it cannot be attained. Krishna is conquered by the love of his devotee. Only when Krishna is pleased does he give that love. It is not attained, it is given. And then Srila Prabhupada says that Krishna is pleased to give it easily if we are serious, if we are sincere, and if we have no ulterior motives. Those three principles which qualify us to receive it from Krishna, to please Krishna, they're all so similar, aren't they? Serious, sincere, and without ulterior motives. Krishna sees our sincerity.